The metal chair felt cold against Lisa Carter's back as she stared at the strange blue lights dancing across the ceiling. 3 days had passed since the bug-like aliens captured her on Kepler Station, and she had not spoken a single word to any of them. The room smelled like burnt copper and something else she could not name. It made her think of hospitals. But worse. Commander Vex-9 clicked his sharp mouth parts together as he watched the human female through the thick glass wall. His 6 eyes moved in different directions, each one studying a different part of her body language. The other humans they had captured broke quickly when faced with the Empire's advanced mind-reading machines. They told the Zephyrians about ship designs, weapon locations, and battle plans within hours of being strapped to the neural interface chairs. But this one was different. Lisa Carter sat perfectly still, her brown eyes looking straight ahead at nothing in particular. Sometimes she would close her eyes for long periods, and the aliens thought she might be sleeping. Other times she would move her lips slightly, as if talking to someone they could not see. The monitoring equipment showed her brain was active and healthy, but she refused to respond to any of their questions. Dr. Clicks entered the observation room carrying a datapad, covered in strange symbols. The tall, thin scientist had studied the minds of 17 different alien species during his long career with the Empire. His specialty was breaking down mental barriers and extracting information from unwilling prisoners. Every species had weaknesses that could be exploited with the right combination of fear, pain, and psychological pressure. Humans, he had learned from studying the other prisoners, were emotional creatures driven by strong feelings about family, honor, and survival. They would sacrifice themselves for others, but they would also betray their deepest secrets to save the people they loved. The key was finding the right emotional trigger for each individual. She shows no response to the pain simulators, Doctor. Clicks reported to Commander Vex-9 in their clicking, buzzing language. The fear projectors have no effect. Even when we showed her images of Earth under attack, her heart rate remained steady. It is as if she has turned off her emotional responses completely. Commander Vex-9 turned all 6 eyes toward the scientist. Perhaps her mind is damaged from the battle at Kepler Station. Many humans suffered head injuries during our assault. No. Her brain scans show perfect health. This appears to be a deliberate choice on her part. She is actively resisting our interrogation through some form of mental discipline we have not encountered before. The 2 aliens studied Lisa Carter through the glass as she sat motionless in the chair. Thin cables connected to her head monitored her thoughts, but the readings showed only basic biological functions. It was as if she had retreated deep inside her own mind to a place their technology could not reach. Lisa had indeed gone to a special place in her thoughts. She was remembering summer afternoons at her family's cabin by Lake Superior. She could almost feel the warm sun on her face and hear the gentle waves lapping against the wooden dock where she used to sit and read books. Her brother Jake would be somewhere nearby, probably trying to catch fish for dinner while their parents sat on the porch talking quietly about everyday things that seemed so important then. The memory was so vivid that she could smell the pine trees and hear the distant call of a loon across the water. It was her safe place, the mental refuge she had learned to create during her military training. The instructors had taught all the soldiers how to build these inner sanctuaries to protect their minds during torture or interrogation. Most people could hold out for a few hours or maybe a day before the pain became too much to bear. Lisa had been practicing this technique for 10 years. Commander VEX-9 was growing impatient with the lack of progress. Intelligence reports indicated that Lisa Carter had been present during high-level strategy meetings on Earth before being deployed to Kepler Station. She potentially knew the locations of hidden human fleet bases, the specifications of new weapon systems, and the overall defensive plans for Earth itself. This information was crucial for the Empire's final assault on the human homeworld. Increase the intensity of the neural probes, he ordered Dr. Clicks. If gentle methods will not work, we must try more direct approaches. Commander, I must advise caution. Human minds are more fragile than some species. Too much neural pressure could cause permanent damage or even death. If that happens, we lose all chance of gaining the information we need. Then find another way. The fleet approaches Earth in 14 standard days. We must know what defenses await us there. Dr. Clicks returned to the interrogation chamber and activated a new set of machines. These devices could stimulate specific parts of the brain to create intense feelings of fear, sadness, or despair. He had never met a sentient being who could resist their effects for more than a few hours. The machines hummed to life, sending invisible waves of energy toward Lisa's head. She felt the alien technology trying to push into her thoughts like cold fingers reaching for her memories. For a moment, the peaceful lake scene wavered as artificial emotions tried to flood her mind. Fear crashed against her mental barriers like dark waves, followed by waves of crushing loneliness and hopelessness. Lisa took a slow, deep breath and returned to her cabin by the lake. She imagined Jake laughing as he pulled a small fish from the water, too proud to admit it was probably too small to keep. She could hear her mother calling from the kitchen window, asking if anyone wanted lemonade. These memories were real and strong, built from years of love and happiness that no alien machine could touch or destroy. The fear projectors ran for 6 hours, straight before Dr. Clicks finally turned them off. Lisa Carter had not moved or spoken during the entire session. Her vital signs remained stable, and her expression never changed from the same calm, distant look she had worn since her capture. Commander Vex 9 stared at the human female with a mixture of admiration and frustration. In all his years of military service, he had never encountered a prisoner with this level of mental discipline. Part of him respected her strength, while another part worried about what this meant for the upcoming invasion of Earth. If one human soldier could resist their most advanced interrogation techniques, what other surprises might they encounter when they reached the human homeworld? Perhaps humans were more dangerous than the Empire had realized. Dr. Clicks had spent the night reviewing every piece of data they had collected about human psychology and behavior. The other prisoners from Kepler Station had provided useful information about human military structure, but none of them possessed the high-level intelligence that Lisa Carter might have. According to their files, she had been present during classified briefings with Senior Earth Defense Command officers just weeks before her deployment. The scientist entered the interrogation chamber carrying a small projection device. Instead of strapping Lisa back into the neural interface chair, he simply set the device on the table between them and activated it. A three-dimensional image of Earth appeared in the air, slowly rotating to show the blue oceans and white clouds that made the human homeworld so beautiful. "Your planet is remarkable," Dr. Clicks said in carefully practiced human English. His translator had been working overtime to help him understand the nuances of human speech patterns. "We have conquered many worlds, but few possess such natural beauty." Lisa Carter looked at the projection for the first time since her capture. Her eyes followed the familiar continents as they turned slowly in the artificial light. She could see the Great Lakes region where she had grown up, though the image was too small to show the cabin where her family spent their summers. "This image was taken by our scout ships 3 months ago," Dr. Clicks continued. "Your military bases are well hidden, but we can see the major cities: New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston. Millions of humans going about their daily lives, unaware that their world will soon change forever." He touched a control, and the projection zoomed in on a busy street scene in what looked like downtown Seattle. Tiny figures moved along the sidewalks, getting into cars, entering buildings, living their normal lives. Children played in a small park while their parents watched from nearby benches. These people trust their military to protect them? They believe soldiers like you will somehow find a way to stop the Empire's advance, but we both know the truth, do we not? Your fleet is outnumbered 50 to 1. Your weapons are centuries behind ours. The only question is how many of these innocent civilians will die before your leaders accept the inevitable surrender. Lisa felt a knot form in her stomach as she watched the projection. These were her people, her species, going about their lives while a massive alien fleet approached from the darkness between stars. She had volunteered for the dangerous mission to Kepler Station precisely because she knew Earth needed every possible advantage in the coming war. Dr. Clix changed the projection to show a series of battle scenes from previous worlds the Empire had conquered. Cities burning under alien bombardment, refugee columns fleeing across devastated landscapes, prisoners being loaded onto transport ships for relocation to labor camps on distant worlds. This is what happens to species that resist too long, he said quietly. The Empire prefers peaceful surrender, but we are prepared to use whatever force is necessary. The choice belongs to your leaders, and that choice depends partly on the information you could provide. The scientist deactivated the projections and sat down across from Lisa for the first time. He was not trying to extract information through pain or fear. Instead, he seemed genuinely interested in having a conversation. "Tell me about your family," he said. "Do you have parents, siblings, children? Are they on Earth right now, going about their daily routines, trusting that somehow everything will work out?" Lisa closed her eyes and returned to her mental refuge by the lake. But the images Dr. Clix had shown her kept intruding on the peaceful scene. She could see her parents' house in Minneapolis, where they still lived in the same neighborhood where she had grown up. Her brother Jake worked as a park ranger in Montana, probably out on some remote trail right now, enjoying the wilderness. He loved so much. Her sister Amy taught third grade at an elementary school in Portland, helping young children learn to read and write. None of them knew that an alien invasion fleet was approaching Earth. Military communications were heavily classified, and families of deployed soldiers received only basic updates about their loved one's safety. Her parents probably thought she was on routine patrol duty somewhere in the outer colonies. "Your silence protects no one," Dr. Clix continued. "The other prisoners have already told us about your defensive formations, your ship classes, your standard tactical procedures. But those are just technical details. What we need to know are the strategic plans that only senior officers would know. Where are your hidden supply bases? Which colonies serve as fallback positions if Earth falls? How do your leaders plan to coordinate resistance across multiple star systems?" He leaned forward slightly, his strange insect-like face showing what might have been genuine concern. "If we know these things in advance, we can plan a surgical strike that minimizes civilian casualties. Your people could be integrated into the Empire peacefully, with minimal loss of life. But if we must discover these secrets through trial and error during the invasion, millions will die needlessly." Lisa opened her eyes and looked directly at Dr. Clix for several long seconds. The alien scientist felt a moment of hope that she might finally be ready to speak. Instead, she closed her eyes again and returned to her internal silence. Dr. Clix tried a different approach. He began talking about the other worlds the Empire had conquered, describing how most of them had eventually adapted to their new circumstances. Former enemies became productive citizens, contributing their unique skills and knowledge to the greater good of galactic civilization. Resistance movements typically faded away within a generation as people realized the benefits of Imperial membership outweighed the costs of continued conflict. "Humans have many admirable qualities," he said. "Your creativity, your emotional complexity, your capacity for both cooperation and individual achievement. These traits would be valuable additions to our society. There is no need for your species to be destroyed or enslaved. The Empire has room for many different kinds of intelligence." He activated another projection showing prosperous cities on conquered worlds where multiple alien species lived and worked together. Former battlefields had been transformed into parks and cultural centers. Children of different species played together in integrated schools. The images suggested a peaceful, multicultural future where humans could thrive under Imperial rule. "All we ask is that your leaders make informed decisions based on accurate information. If they understand the true scope of our military capabilities, they can surrender before the shooting starts. If they know we have already identified their hidden bases and supply routes, they will not waste lives on hopeless last stands. The intelligence you possess could save countless human lives." Lisa Carter had heard similar arguments during her military training. Enemy interrogators always claimed they were trying to minimize casualties and prevent unnecessary suffering. They positioned themselves as reasonable people seeking practical solutions to difficult problems. The technique worked on many prisoners because it appealed to their natural desire to protect innocent people, but Lisa had also been taught to recognize these psychological manipulation tactics. The aliens were not primarily concerned about human casualties. They wanted information that would make their invasion easier and reduce their own losses. Any benefit to human civilians would be purely incidental to their main objective of conquest. She remained silent for the rest of the session. Even when Dr. Clicks showed her recordings that appeared to be other human prisoners being executed for their failure to cooperate. The alien scientist watched her carefully for any emotional response, but Lisa's expression never changed from the same calm, distant look she had maintained since her capture. When the session ended, Commander Vex-9 reviewed the recordings with growing frustration. 12 days had passed since Lisa Carter's capture, and they had learned nothing useful from her. The invasion fleet continued its approach toward Earth, but without detailed intelligence about human defensive preparations. The assault could face unexpected complications that might cost thousands of Imperial lives. On the 12th day of her captivity, something changed in Lisa Carter's behavior. Dr. Clicks entered the interrogation chamber to find her humming softly under her breath. The melody was unfamiliar to him, but his translation software identified it as a human religious song called Amazing Grace. The tune drifted through the sterile room like a gentle breeze, creating an atmosphere that felt somehow peaceful despite the harsh metal walls and blinking monitoring equipment. Dr. Clicks paused in the doorway, surprised by this unexpected development. For nearly 2 weeks, Lisa had maintained complete silence except for basic biological functions. Now she was voluntarily producing sound, even though it was not speech. The scientist approached slowly, not wanting to startle her back into silence. "That is a beautiful melody," he said carefully, settling into the chair across from her. "What does it mean to your people?" Lisa stopped humming and looked directly at Dr. Clicks for the first time since her capture. Her brown eyes seemed clearer, now more focused on the present moment rather than the distant mental refuge where she had been hiding. "It is about finding peace when everything seems hopeless," she said, her voice rough from days of disuse. "About believing that good things can come from the worst situations." The alien scientist felt his pulse quicken with excitement. After 12 days of complete silence, the human prisoner was finally engaging in conversation. He had to handle this breakthrough carefully, building trust without pushing too hard for military information. "Your species seems to find great comfort in these religious concepts," Dr. Clicks observed. "Hope, redemption, the possibility of salvation even in the darkest circumstances. Is this why you have been so resistant to our interrogation methods?" Lisa smiled slightly, the first expression of anything resembling happiness she had shown since her capture. "Hope is what makes us human, I suppose. The belief that tomorrow might be better than today, even when all evidence suggests otherwise. But surely you must recognize the reality of your situation. Your fleet is vastly outnumbered. Your technology is inferior to ours. Earth will fall within months, perhaps weeks. Where is the hope in that?" "Hope does not require good odds," Lisa replied. "It just requires the possibility that something unexpected might happen. Something the experts and the computers did not account for in their calculations." Dr. Clicks leaned forward, genuinely curious now. He had studied human psychology extensively, but this conversation was giving him new insights into how their minds worked. "Tell me more about your background. Where did you grow up? What led you to join the military?" Lisa seemed to consider this request for several moments before answering. "I grew up in Minnesota, near the Great Lakes. My father was a teacher. My mother worked at the local hospital. We had a cabin by Lake Superior where we spent our summers. It was peaceful there, quiet enough to hear yourself think." The scientist made notes on his datapad as she spoke. Personal details might not seem military relevant, but they could provide psychological leverage for future interrogation sessions. "Do you have brothers, sisters?" A brother named Jake and a sister named Amy. Jake became a park ranger, spends most of his time in the wilderness taking care of forests and wildlife. Amy teaches elementary school, 3rd grade. She says that is the perfect age because kids are old enough to have real conversations but young enough to still believe in magic. Dr. Clicks found himself genuinely interested in these family stories. Zephyrian society was organized very differently, with offspring raised communally rather than in small family units. The intense emotional bonds humans formed with their relatives were foreign to his experience but fascinating from an anthropological perspective. What made you choose military service over other career paths? Lisa was quiet for a long time before answering. I wanted to see the stars. Earth is beautiful, but there is so much more out there to explore and discover. The military offered a chance to travel between worlds, to be part of something bigger than myself. And now you have seen more of the galaxy than most humans ever. Well, unfortunately, it was as a prisoner rather than an explorer. Sometimes the journey takes unexpected turns, Lisa said with another small smile. That does not mean it was a mistake to begin walking. The conversation continued for several hours, with Dr. Clicks asking about human culture, customs, and daily life while Lisa shared stories about her childhood and family. She talked about hiking in the mountains with Jake, learning to identify different types of birds and trees. She described helping Amy with school projects, teaching younger children about science and history. She spoke about her parents' quiet strength, the way they supported each other through good times and bad without making a big show of it. None of this information was militarily useful, but Dr. Clicks found it valuable for understanding how human minds worked. These people formed incredibly strong emotional attachments to places and individuals. They found meaning in simple activities like teaching children or protecting wilderness areas. Their sense of identity was closely tied to their relationships with others rather than their individual achievements or status within a larger organization. Commander Vex 9 monitored these conversations with growing impatience. The human prisoner was talking freely now, but she revealed nothing about fleet movements, defensive strategies, or hidden military installations. Every question that touched on classified topics was deflected with more personal stories or philosophical observations. She is wasting our time with irrelevant chatter, the commander complained during one of his briefings with Dr. Clicks. We need tactical intelligence, not family histories. Patience, Commander. She is beginning to trust me, which is essential for eventual cooperation. These personal revelations are building towards something more substantial. I can sense that she wants to share more significant information but needs to feel safe doing. So, Dr. Clicks was partially correct in this assessment. Lisa Carter was indeed sharing more of herself with her captor, but not for the reasons he imagined. Every conversation provided her with valuable intelligence about Zephyrian psychology, culture, and military organization. She was learning how they thought, what they feared, and how their command structure operated. The alien scientist had revealed far more than he realized during their talks. His comments about previous conquests told her about imperial tactics and strategies. His questions about human defenses revealed what information they already possessed and what gaps existed in their intelligence. His casual references to the approaching fleet gave her estimates of their timing and probable approach routes. Most importantly, she was learning about the ship itself during her daily transport between the cell and interrogation chamber. The guards had grown relaxed around her now that she seemed cooperative and harmless. They no longer searched her thoroughly or monitored her movements as carefully as they had during the first week. She was mentally mapping corridors, noting security checkpoints, and observing duty rotations. Lisa had also been using her time alone in the cell to work on the restraint mechanisms and monitoring equipment. Her engineering background from military technical training allowed her to understand how the alien systems functioned. With patience and careful manipulation, she had been gradually weakening key components without triggering the automated alarms. Dr. Clicks continued his psychological approach, genuinely believing he was making progress toward extracting military secrets. He began sharing more information about Zephyrian culture and history, thinking this cultural exchange would encourage Lisa to reciprocate with more sensitive information about human military affairs. What he did not realize was that she already possessed all the tactical intelligence the Empire desperately needed. The joke was on them, and soon they would understand just how thoroughly they had been outmaneuvered by a single human prisoner who refused to speak until she was ready to reveal the truth on her own terms. On the 18th day of her imprisonment, Dr. Klix was explaining Zephyrian reproductive cycles to Lisa Carter when something unexpected happened. He was describing how their species valued logical efficiency above all else, how every decision was based on careful analysis of costs and benefits, how emotional attachments were seen as dangerous weaknesses that interfered with rational thinking. Lisa Carter began to chuckle. The sound started as a low rumble in her throat, barely audible, above the humming of the interrogation equipment. But it grew steadily louder, developing into genuine laughter that echoed off the metal walls of the chamber. Dr. Klix stopped speaking, confused by this sudden outburst. He checked his translation software to see if he had accidentally said something amusing in human language, but found no errors. The laughter continued, growing stronger and more intense. Lisa doubled over in her chair, holding her sides as waves of mirth overtook her. Tears began streaming down her face as she struggled to breathe between fits of laughter. The sound was unlike anything the Zephyrian scientist had ever heard from a prisoner. Most captives showed fear, anger, desperation, or resigned defeat, but never this kind of uninhibited amusement, Commander. Vex 9 rushed to the interrogation chamber as Lisa's laughter echoed through the corridors of the ship. Other crew members gathered outside, disturbed by the unusual noise. In Zephyrian culture, laughter was rare and usually indicated either mental illness or extreme contempt. Neither interpretation seemed positive for their interrogation efforts. "What is happening here?" Commander Vex 9 demanded as he entered the chamber. His 6 eyes swiveled to examine Lisa from multiple angles, looking for signs of psychological breakdown or hostile intent. Lisa's laughter began to subside, but her eyes sparkled with an emotion the aliens had never seen in a prisoner before. It was genuine amusement mixed with something that looked almost like pity. She wiped the tears from her cheeks and took several deep breaths to regain her composure. "You really do not understand, do you?" she said, still smiling broadly. "All this time, you have been trying to break me, to get me to reveal human military secrets, but you have got it completely wrong." Dr. Klix felt a chill run through his exoskeleton as he sensed that something fundamental was about to change in their relationship. "Explain yourself, human." Lisa looked directly at Commander Vex 9, her smile fading into an expression that somehow seemed more threatening than any show of defiance they had witnessed during her captivity. "You want to know the real secret. The thing your intelligence services are so desperate to learn. It is not about ship locations or battle plans or weapon specifications." "Then what?" Commander Vex 9 clicked his mandibles impatiently. "The secret is that you have already lost," Lisa said with calm certainty. "Every human you have captured, every prisoner you have interrogated, every tactical detail you have extracted from them, it has all been exactly what we wanted you to know." Dr. Klix felt his heart skip several beats as the implications of her words began to sink in. "Impossible. Our intelligence analysis clearly indicated that you possess classified information about human defense strategies." "Your intelligence was fed information that we wanted you to have?" Lisa interrupted. "Do you really think we would put our most sensitive military secrets in the head of a Marine sergeant? Those classified strategy meetings I supposedly attended. I was there too. Memorize false intelligence designed specifically for scenarios like this." Commander Vex 9 began clicking his mandibles rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "You are lying. Our psychological profiles indicate that humans cannot maintain complex deceptions under our advanced interrogation methods." Lisa's smile widened as she prepared to reveal the full scope of their miscalculation. "That is the beauty of it. I was not lying about anything personal during our conversations. My childhood, my family, my beliefs about hope and redemption, all of that was completely true. The only deception was letting you think I had valuable military intelligence in the first place. The full implications of this revelation began to crash over the two aliens like a tsunami. If Lisa Carter was telling the truth, then every piece of tactical information they had gathered from human prisoners could be false. Their entire invasion strategy might be based on fabricated intelligence designed to lead them into carefully prepared traps. But why maintain silence for so long? Dr. Clicks asked, his scientific curiosity struggling to overcome his growing alarm. If you had no secrets to protect, why endure our interrogation methods? Because I needed time to learn everything I could about your species, your technology, and this ship, Lisa replied. And I needed to wait for the right moment to implement my real mission. She stood up slowly, and both aliens were shocked to realize that her restraints had somehow been released. The metal bands that had held her to the chair for 18 days now hung loose and powerless. Commander Vex 9 reached for his weapon, but Lisa raised her hands peacefully. I would not do that if I were you, she said calmly. You see, while you were focused on trying to break my mind, I was quietly studying and sabotaging your security systems. Those restraints have not worked for 3 days now. I've been sitting here voluntarily, waiting for the right psychological moment to reveal the truth. Alarms began blaring throughout the Zephyrian vessel as automated systems detected the security breach. Red warning lights flashed in the corridors as emergency protocols activated. But Lisa Carter seemed completely calm, as if she had been expecting this reaction. The real secret, she continued, as armed guards rushed toward the interrogation chamber, is not what humans are planning to do. It is what we are capable of when you underestimate us. Your invasion fleet is about to discover that the hard way. Dr. Click stared at her in amazement and growing horror. You are just one prisoner on a ship full of trained soldiers. What can you possibly accomplish? More than you might think, Lisa replied as she moved toward the chamber's ventilation grate. Her fingers found hidden releases that she had been preparing for days, and the metal panel swung open silently. You forget that I have been gathering intelligence about your ship layouts, security protocols, and communication systems for 18 days? I know this vessel better than some of your own crew members. Commander Vex 9 shouted orders in the Zephyrian language as security forces converged on their location. But Lisa Carter had already disappeared into the ship's ventilation system, carrying with her detailed knowledge of Imperial capabilities, fleet positions, and invasion plans. Her laughter echoed through the air ducts one final time as she began making her way toward the ship's communication array. The Zephyrian flagship was about to become an unwilling broadcast station, transmitting human intelligence directly to the approaching Earth defense fleet. The hunters had become the hunted, and the aliens were beginning to understand why humanity had survived and thrived despite facing impossible odds throughout their history. They had assumed they were dealing with a primitive species driven by emotion and instinct, but they were discovering that human intelligence could be far more dangerous than superior technology when properly applied. The real battle was just beginning, and everything the Empire thought it knew about human capabilities was about to be proven tragically wrong. Lisa Carter crawled through the ventilation system with practiced efficiency, following the mental map she had been building during her 18 days of captivity. Behind her, she could hear the sounds of confused aliens searching the interrogation chamber and shouting orders in their clicking, buzzing language. Emergency lights flashed red through the metal grates, and automated announcements echoed through the corridors, warning of a security breach. The ship's layout had become as familiar to her as the cabin by Lake Superior where she used to spend childhood summers. Every corridor, every junction, every security checkpoint had been carefully observed and memorized during her daily transport between cell and interrogation chamber. The aliens had grown careless over time, assuming she was broken and harmless. They had no idea she was conducting reconnaissance on their most classified military vessel. She reached the first major junction in the ventilation system and paused to listen for pursuit. The ducts were too small for adult Zephyrians to follow, which gave her a significant advantage in mobility. Their insect-like bodies were designed for efficiency in open spaces, not cramped crawlways. She could hear them trying to track her movement by sound, but the ship's ventilation fans created enough background noise to mask her exact location. Lisa had spent considerable time during her imprisonment studying Zephyrian technology and ship design. Their engineering was impressive but followed predictable patterns based on logical efficiency. Everything was designed with multiple redundancies and fail-safe systems, which meant there were always backup routes to any critical system. The communications array she needed to reach would be heavily protected, but protection designed to stop external attacks might not account for internal sabotage. The ventilation shaft led her past the ship's central power core, where she could feel the vibrations of massive engines pushing the vessel through space toward Earth. Through a grate, she glimpsed alien technicians monitoring displays covered with symbols she had learned to read during her conversations with Dr. Clicks. The power readings suggested they were part of a much larger fleet, probably the main invasion force that intelligence had warned about before her capture. She continued crawling toward the upper levels, where the communication equipment would be located. The ship's artificial gravity made movement easier than it would have been in 0G, but the metal ducts were still cramped and uncomfortable. Her muscles ached from 18 days of confinement, but adrenaline and determination kept her moving forward. Commander Vex 9 was coordinating search teams throughout the ship, growing increasingly frustrated with their inability to locate one escaped human prisoner. His security chief reported that internal sensors were having difficulty tracking her movement through the ventilation system. The human appeared to understand their technology well enough to avoid detection by most monitoring devices. She is just one individual. He clicked angrily at his subordinates. How difficult can it be to find her on our own ship? But even as he spoke, Commander Vex 9 was beginning to understand that they had seriously underestimated their prisoner. Everything about her capture and interrogation had been carefully planned and executed. She had used their own assumptions against them, appearing helpless and broken while actually conducting an intelligence operation of her own. Lisa reached the communication section after 40 minutes of careful crawling. The area was heavily guarded, with multiple security checkpoints and armed sentries posted at every entrance. But the ventilation grates were considered secure because they were too small for Zephyrian infiltration. Human anatomy gave her access to areas that the aliens had never considered vulnerable. She studied the communication array through a maintenance grate, noting the positions of technicians and guards. The main transmission equipment was located in a shielded chamber designed to prevent enemy interception of Imperial communications. Getting inside would require creating a distraction that drew personnel away from their posts. Lisa had observed that Zephyrians responded to emergencies with predictable efficiency. They would prioritize life support systems over communication security if forced to choose. She backtracked through the ventilation system to a section that connected to the ship's environmental controls. Her engineering training had taught her how mechanical systems worked, and alien technology followed similar principles despite its advanced capabilities. She located the main air recycling unit and began carefully disconnecting key components. The work had to be done precisely to create system alarms without causing catastrophic failure that might kill everyone aboard. After 20 minutes of delicate sabotage, warning lights began flashing as atmospheric processors detected irregularities in air quality and circulation. Emergency response teams rushed toward the environmental section as automated systems announced potential life support failure. Lisa waited until the communication area was minimally staffed before making her move toward the transmission equipment. The few remaining technicians were too focused on monitoring emergency broadcasts to notice additional ventilation noises above their heads. Lisa removed a ceiling grate and dropped silently into the communication chamber. The alien equipment was more complex than human technology but operated on recognizable principles. She needed to access their long-range transmitters and redirect their signal toward Earth space. Working quickly but carefully, she connected a small device she had constructed from components salvaged during her imprisonment. The device would piggyback her transmission onto the regular communication traffic between the flagship and the rest of the invasion fleet. To outside observers, it would appear to be routine tactical chatter, but embedded within the signal would be detailed intelligence about Imperial fleet strength, positions, capabilities, and invasion plans. The transmission began broadcasting immediately, sending comprehensive data about Zephyrian military assets directly to Earth Defense Command. Everything Lisa had learned during her 18 days of captivity was now flowing toward Earth at the speed of light. Fleet positions, ship classifications, weapon capabilities, command structure, tactical doctrines, and most importantly, the false intelligence that had been fed to other human prisoners. Earth Defense Command would now know that their deception operation had worked perfectly. The Zephyrian invasion fleet was approaching Earth based on completely fabricated tactical information. Human forces would be waiting in positions the aliens never expected, using strategies designed to exploit weaknesses in Imperial doctrine that Lisa had identified during her conversations with Dr. Clicks. The communication chamber's main door burst open as armed guards finally located the source of the unauthorized transmission. But Lisa was already moving, diving back into the ventilation system as energy weapons discharged behind her. The aliens shouted in frustration as their prisoner disappeared, once again into the maze of air ducts that honeycombed their ship. Commander Vex 9 arrived at the communication center within minutes, his 6 eyes taking in the scene of sabotaged equipment and confused technicians. His security chief reported that the human had somehow accessed their most secure systems and transmitted classified data toward Earth space. The transmission had been brief but contained enough information to compromise their entire invasion strategy. "Can we intercept the signal before it reaches human space?" Commander Vex 9 demanded. "Negative, Commander. The transmission was sent using our own high-power arrays. It will reach Earth in approximately 6 hours, well before our fleet arrives." In the system, the implications were staggering. Not only had they failed to extract useful intelligence from their human prisoner, but she had turned the tables completely, using their own ship to warn Earth about the approaching invasion. Worse yet, if she was telling the truth about the false information given to other prisoners, then the Empire's entire battle plan was based on lies. Lisa continued moving through the ventilation system, but she was no longer trying to hide. Her mission was complete, and now she needed to create as much additional chaos as possible before the aliens managed to capture her. Every minute of disruption gave Earth's defenders more time to prepare for what was coming. She accessed the ship's internal communication system and began broadcasting messages in several alien languages she had learned during her imprisonment. The messages warned of imminent system failures, enemy infiltration, and command structure breakdown. Most crew members quickly realized these were false alarms, but the confusion and uncertainty served her purposes perfectly. Dr. Clicks found himself in the strange position of admiring his former prisoner even as she systematically undermined his ship's operations. From a scientific perspective, Lisa Carter's performance had been remarkable. She had maintained perfect psychological discipline under extreme pressure while conducting a complex intelligence operation. Her understanding of Zephyrian psychology and technology demonstrated intellectual capabilities that their species' assessment profiles had completely missed. The alien scientist realized that humans might be far more dangerous than the Empire had assumed. If one captured soldier could cause this much disruption to their most advanced warship, what could an entire species accomplish when properly motivated and organized? Perhaps the invasion of Earth would